Dr. Raghunandan Singh with us, and he will be in conversation with Mr. Abhilash Khandekar and Mr. Deshdeep Saxena. I would request these three gentlemen to please take their seats on stage. एंड दोस्तों, इससे पहले हम इनके साथ बातचीत का सिलसिला शुरू करें, मैं चाहूँगा कि मैं आपको इनकी अभी तक की जिंदगी के कुछ पहलुओं से He started his career as a conservation biologist 30 plus years ago with research on snow leopard in Ladakh. Later, he worked as regional science and conservation director for the International Snow Leopard Trust. He was a member of the teaching faculty at the Wildlife Institute of India, and he is very closely involved with tiger conservation and research in a dry tropical forest of central India, and recently published this very book based on his 10-year study there. And the title says The Rise and Fall of the Emerald Tigers. In 2003, BBC Animal Planet produced an award-winning wildlife documentary film on his work with the tigers in Panna, which is quite obviously known as the tigers of the Emerald Forest. And as our first discussant for this session, we have a renowned person जिन्हें पिछले 2 दिनों से मैं और सारे वॉलंटियर्स परेशान करते हुए आ रहे हैं, and I would take this liberty to label him as a young man because he looks like one and he is like one. He is the one and only Mr. Abhilash Khandekar, the founder member of Society of Culture and Development. In last 2 years, we have come across some important positions that he holds. But just to remind you again, Mr. Abhilash Khandekar is a veteran multilingual journalist of India and also an environmentalist and a famous sports administrator. Moving on, as our second discussion for the day, we have Mr. Deshdeep Saxena with us. He has been a journalist for past 3 decades. Wow. Well, I believe some interestingly tough questions must be there on the way for Dr. Raghunandan ji. And prior to his present stretch with the Times of India, Mr. Saxena has worked with Sunday, Hindustan Times and TV channels such as Star News and NewsX. और अब मैं आप सभी दर्शकों से दरख्वास्त करूंगा कि अपनी तालियों की गूंज के साथ हम इजाजत दें इन्हें ये बातचीत शुरू करने की.
Good morning. Thank you very much for coming in your numbers you have here. But tiger is one subject that we expect more and more people to understand what tiger is all about. Tiger's contribution to society, tiger's contribution to India, and also tiger's contribution to Madhya Pradesh, because it was once upon a time called, or it was tagged as Tiger State. I don't know if it is still having that tag or it has been taken away by Karnataka or some other state. So I welcome Raghu Chudawat, who has been a tiger conservationist. He has been conservationist, he is a tiger expert, and his recent book, The Rise and Fall of the Emerald Tigers, 10 Years of Research in Panna National Park. As you all know, that Panna had good number of tigers, about 35 during the turn of this decade, and around 2005-06, we got to know that tigers are slowly disappearing from that wonderful landscape. And Raghu was the first whistleblower, but as the government react to this thing, they were in a mode of denial. I know who were the forest secretary, who were the chief secretaries, and who were the responsible officers, but they were all in the forest department also, including the wildlife warden. They were all of the view that tigers are secured, safe inside the Panna jungles. But as luck would have it, and as the reality dawned upon us sometime in 2008 and 9, what Raghu was saying, what he was cautioning to the forest department, the tigers had actually decimated from Panna Tiger Reserve, and there was no tiger in this thing. There was a committee in 2008 formed by Madhya Pradesh government, so I was a member of that committee, and my wife used to laugh at me that you are going to a tiger reserve, there is no tiger. I mean, that is a very sad development, but still I would like to go and see what are the reasons for this thing. Raghu was also then trying to tell the committee what were the reasons, a large number of reasons. But beyond that, Raghu is an expert who has worked on tiger ecology, who has worked on Panna Tiger Reserve. He has worked with WII for many years. He is from Madhya Pradesh and he understands Madhya Pradesh inside out as far as tiger reserves, the jungles, the biodiversity and the ecosystems work. So I welcome Raghu here on this BLF forum. And my first question to Raghu is that while the 10-year research in Panna National Parks began, and now the park, there was a news item in today's newspapers that Panna has about 55 tigers. So from 0 to 55, is that a good sign, or what were the reasons that went into this thing, that despite your call to the concern to tiger experts and others, nothing really happened and we could not prevent the tragedy, and today now Panna has about 55 tigers. So you can take a quick look at both the things.
We don't know how many tigers are there. There's a claim of 55 tigers there.
Yeah.
But the problem which I see is that the reasons why we lost tigers in the first original tiger population that we lost, we have not understood the problems. We're seeing same thing happening with this population, though it is increasing. But the main reason for the loss of tigers was the high mortality in breeding females, which is still prevalent in this population. The only difference here is that some of the breeding population are radio collared, and because that radio collar provide a kind of a security, it is still breeding, so the larger breeding population is there. It was the case when we radio collared, we had 5 radio collared females, and that was a success. And then when my relation with the department went down, the monitoring stopped, the female were exposed, and then high mortality female caused a decline in 4 or 5 years. I can see the same thing happening still the moment the radio collaring stops. So, this population will be exposed to the same kind of threats that was original population was facing. So we have not yet sorted out that problem. So it will remain vulnerable until we have.
So mortality means what do you want to indicate?
Only the female. If you look at any large carnivore population around the world, the male mortality is always high. The females survive better, adult females survive better. Whereas in Panna it was very, very high. And if you model with that mortality probabilities, none of the population, even larger population of about 15 breeding females, will not be able to survive. So we need a larger population. Panna can't hold that large population. So the moment you stop that artificial way of protecting individuals, its population will face the same problem.
So the other question is that when the tiger population was going down and you had almost been ejected out of the Panna National Park about more than 10-12 years ago, and you still continued to work on Panna in a different manner. You left WII and you were on your own. Now, what do you suggest to the government, or how do you, because all the tiger experts with whom I interact in Delhi and other places, they are also worried that when Sariska happened, we could not stop Sariska from happening, and we did not learn any lessons from Sariska, and soon after, Panna happened. So, is there a parallel between Sariska and Panna?
Not only Panna, Sariska, if you look at the one common thing, it's the dry forest. And so we looked at why it happened. So we looked at historical data, where tigers were present, where they disappeared, and you will find that there are 2 characteristics which makes it to explain this. One is a smaller protected population and a dry forest. So if you have a small protected population in a dry forest, it's got a serious threat. So dry forest is the largest tiger habitat of India. So we have lost most of our tiger population from dry forest. And the main reason for this is that what we call in science is a scale mismatch. In dry forest, tiger needs 3 to 4 times larger spaces. So if the female territory in Karna is about 14 square kilometer, in Panna is about 60 square kilometer. So you need much larger spaces, and which we don't have. So in 60s and 70s, when we started conservation work, when I was young, joining the field, we used to have a debate of sloths, which we call single large or several small population, and we opted for single large. but we were not able to create because we didn't have the scientific information what large size we require. Now we don't have that. So we have a problem. Now we have invested 40 years of time, money, energy, and we have got reasonable success of doing that, but it's not viable on its own. So tiger needs three major critical issues. One is individual population to be viable. One of the first sign of extinction is the range reduction, and so we need to reverse the range expansion as well. So
The range reduction, you means that individual tigers range?
no,
Or overall?
overall distribution range, and then connectivity. Now these three things we have to address. Now the problem what we have with our conservation model, which is a protected area base, is an exclusive conservation model, where you set aside an area and you remove all the threats which were operating on tigers. So we have created these island pockets. Now there we have done very well, but the conservation has no reach to outside areas. Now when these small areas are not viable, not connected, and can't expand their range, then tiger has a problem. We need to deal with it. Now we can't create protected areas everywhere. So we need an alternative conservation model we need to work on. So we need an inclusive model. We can't remove people from the landscapes. So people will be there, and we have to have tigers in there. So then we need an inclusive conservation model. That is something.
So I think this debate has been raging on for many years that tigers and humans should coexist. But there are many people who say that tiger area should be inviolate and there just cannot be this kind of, because they want to actually avoid the man-animal conflict. So what model you are saying, is it a win-win situation?
See, why, if you go and talk to a villager, we've done some surveys, they have no objection or no problem having wildlife in their neighborhood. The problem comes when their economy is not working, they are struggling to survive. They don't want any more threat which makes their survival even more difficult. So if tiger kills a buffalo, then it's a problem. If livestock comes into their crop field, it's a problem. So as long as that is sorted out, then there is a problem. And unfortunate thing which I read in now newspapers and the stories which have been planted, that India has no more space for tigers. It's a very narrow view of that you're only looking at protected area and then we don't have a space. Actually, tiger can put in lot of more value to our forest. Now look at the village where I am working. It has got about 150 households. They have the main economy there is based on buffalo, and each buffalo there in the village maybe about 450 buffaloes. Each buffalo generates about 20 to 25,000 rupees. You're talking about 3 to 4 crore of economy in a village just from buffalo, which are using the forest resources. Any conservation program, if you want to work with people, then has to replace the 3 crores. Now, 3 crores is a very substantial amount of money. But if you look at it individually, families are struggling. It is not viable. So they add more buffaloes, the productivity goes down, maybe 2%, 5% increase of their thing is in revenue is there. So individually, family who's owning is economically not doing well, but cumulatively the economy is quite robust. Now tiger can bring in that much money. We believe, we look at world around the world, there is options available, the models which we can run, we can replace that economy. So basically, we need to rebuild the rural economy in tiger land, which are conservation-based economies. So that model, when you're doing it, it basically is to benefit communities first, and the conservation will follow it.
Babu, I would like you to go back to those 10 years when you were holding research work in Panna National Park, which ultimately became basis of your book. What was that study? What was your experience? You were first among few, who knew that something wrong was happening there. You were not able to see the tigers. The whole world came to know later on. You knew it much before. So what was that study? Please tell us, which ultimately became the basis of the book.
But see, book is in two parts. One is purely scientific, and I try to be as put it those facts, tiger biology, ecology, as simply as possible. And the later part is about the conservation policy, that's what you referred to. And the politics is as bad as any other politics is. Unfortunate thing was that in India, the wildlife science is entirely dependent on the goodwill of the forest department. As long as there's goodwill exists, we have the access to work. And the moment that goodwill disappears, then we have problems.
I remember you were almost thrown out from the.
Yeah, we did, and I had about 6 or 7 prosecutions and revenue recoveries of 30-40 lakhs. It is still there. It will remain till I survive. I think they're still there. But that's not the point here. That happens. India is not the worst country. There are much worse countries where this kind of persecution happens. But that's okay. But the problem is, the reason I raised this issue of conservation politics is it's a systemic failure that led to the tiger. It's not the ecology or biology. We could have dealt with it. And it was an easier thing to deal with system failures. And we should. And as he said, Sariska happened and we didn't learn and we allowed it to happen. And it's the same systemic failure which has allowed this to happen. I have a problem that when somebody working in the ground, he can commit mistake. I feel like there can be mistake, there can be negligence. But as a supervisor role, those people should not be blind eye to it. And so my biggest depressed point was that during this 5-year struggle when tiger was disappearing, there was not a single person in the forest department who could stand up and say, no, we have to stop this.
Achha, tell us a lesson learned from Panna.
I think for the rest of the tigers, I don't think they have learned it, not even for Panna tiger they have learned it. They are still doing the same. See, the problem is that when we lost tigers in Sariska, we didn't lose Sariska or Panna. We lost tigers there. So things that forest department was doing was working for tiger habitat, is working for tiger prey, but it was not working for tiger. So they needed to do certain things differently so that it works also for tiger. That's all that was needed, but they never understood that. The problem, Rajiv, is that if you look at where the knowledge is, so all the research is being done outside people, individuals, organizations, institutions, they have done. They have no access to decision making. So if you look at the literature, 70% is outside, only 30% is inside people who have done it. So decision is being made, policies is being made, plan is being made by only 30% of the knowledge they have. That's the problem. There is a lot of knowledge that exists outside the system, is not being used. In last 20 years, we see it's completely cut off. But I have not been in a meeting from about 20 years, because I can say things clearly. And it's like this.
I want you to be as frank as possible.
In national, state level, the knowledge has been cut out. So the knowledge has been generated, expertise has been generated, which is outside the system. The system makes it, which has got 30% of knowledge. So of course there will be a problem.
So there is a chapter in your book, chapter 9, The Science of Saving Tigers. But before that, I would like to ask, when the Project Tiger was started in 72 and onwards, there were only 9 tiger reserves in the country. Today there are 50 tiger reserves. The number of tigers has also gone up. So generally people feel that everything is hunky-dory on the tiger front. Do you agree?
No, because in the last report, if you see, we don't even talk about, we're celebrating the numbers, and I will come and discuss, because there are at least 3 tiger reserves where we lost tigers. We are not even mentioning it in the new report. We don't even.
Buxa, Dampa, and
we don't
Simlipal.
even, it doesn't even come into the radar of people that we lost that. The problem is with this work which has happened is what we call is conservation amnesia. It's basically a syndrome of shifting baseline. When India told the world in 69 that 2,500 tigers are left in India, it was a shocker and shocked the world. Everybody committed, and we started Project Tiger and we worked on it. Now the baseline is shifted to 2004, 1,400. Now 1,400. Now we're saying that we have doubled and we celebrate.
So in 2008 there were 1,411 and 2011 census gave the figure of 1,706 And in 2014, 2,226,
Yeah.
and now it has gone up to
So the
3,500.
basically baseline for 2,500 now is become 1,400. So now we're saying we double the numbers. Actually, if you look at where we started, conservation program was in 2,500, and so maybe a couple of hundred actually. And you have to look at this whole exercise very carefully. When we gave the figure of 1,400, it was not actually 1,400 tigers in India. There were still 2,000 to 2,500 tigers because they have only surveyed about 60% of the area. 2010 they added some more areas, so the population increased. Then 2014 they added some more areas, some more population increased.
So because of the
Yeah, so
criticism,
none of the census figures are comparable. Now, so in 2014, as far as I am concerned, the figure was still 2,000, 2,500, but now, because we shifted the baseline, we can tell the world that we have doubled the numbers.
but
And it's been
beyond
successful.
shifting the the baseline, they have after shifted to better technology. The Pagmark system was discontinued in 2006, and the earlier 2000, the 1,400 figure came out of the Pagmark, and people thought it was inaccurate. And you said there were still more tigers.
No.
So you believe in Pagmark system of census of tiger or the camera trap?
No. I'm not questioning this methodology.
Modality.
It's completely different. What I'm saying is the figures are not comparable because you have covered only 60% of the area and came up with the actual good numbers. I'm not debating them. Okay. So that was the reliable figures which they come up with 60% of the area. Then you added 20% more area. So you added 20% more population to the problem. Then in third time you added another 20% of that.
So what's wrong
See
with
the
that?
whole number
That
game.
is the thing. And with the last census, they added another 15% by adding this time cubs. So earlier it was 1.5-year-old cubs. Now you
Traditionally,
added
there were no
one
cubs.
year-old cubs. So another 150, 200 you added. So that's the problem. It's not telling you the truth is the problem. First three reports, if you see, they don't mention how much area they have covered. Because it exposes the figures.
So is the government of India NTCA only figure centric?
We are.
Huh?
We
That's what I was
generally
asking
are.
is, how do you see this number game? The doubling of tiger from 2010, they decided to double the number of tigers in the whole world. And
But I would have been very happy.
2022 is the deadline for it.
We in 40 years of time, I don't think any country has committed so much money, generated so much expertise, so much political will set aside for tiger alone. No range countries has done. And for instance, any developed country for their own species have done it, what India has done it. So it's fantastic. But what we have achieved, if you had 5,000 to 6,000 tigers, double the number in 50 years, we would have been much better. We had a better chance of doing it in 60s and 70s and 80s than now doing it now because of the development pressures and
Economics
population
is
pressures
taking over environment.
But it still is possible because like Madhya Pradesh has got 80,000 square kilometer of tiger forest. We have found tigers in 15,000 square kilometer of area. The tiger reserves are only 4,000 square kilometers.
But Raghu, you will appreciate at the global level, people are looking at India as the only hope for saving tigers. And are we not doing sufficient for that? Are we not protecting our jungles? Are we not protecting our biodiversity? Are we not protecting our rivers? And are we not protecting our tiger habitats?
I'm certainly not protecting our rivers. That I do not agree. I think we are not protecting. We have not done enough to protect our rivers. But if you look at conservation-wise, what India has achieved, I think we are way up. In many developed countries, you look at highest density of rhinos, where are in the world? We have in India. Where is the highest density of lions in the world? We have in India. Where is the highest density of snow leopards in India? Highest density of tigers is in India. You go on, the things which we have achieved for rhinos, for hundreds and 100 rhinos to 3,000 rhinos, lions. So what we have been able to do it is quite substantial. It is capable of doing it. That's what I'm saying. That we are also capable of having 10,000 tigers. Around the world, people come to see tigers. We have only a handful of places to go and see, maybe 10. Why can't we have 100 places to go and see tigers? It is possible. It adds value. It can raise money. It can provide that money to the communities. our conservation has failed to provide the benefits of conservation to the local community. That's the problem I see.
Sir, Raghu, tell us one thing. Few minutes back you were telling us that 80% of the research work is being done by the people who are not in forest department. Right? This is the question. Can we take tiger conservation beyond forest department? And how it can be achieved? Is it impractical?
Well, I, in a very close circle, first time I'm telling it open, are we right if we, when we gave the responsibility of managing our forest for wildlife and what forester the right choice? Because in a wildlife manager, forestry is no role. Okay? But we have given right or wrong, it has been given. But we have to create a professional system to manage it. That's we are not able to create. It works with individuals. You have an individual brilliance, he will work. And like P.K. Chaudhary when Panna was there, it worked. I don't think I have seen any well-managed park in my life for 30 years when it was managed by P.K. Chaudhary. You will see. And the same staff, same guard, and then some field director came and we lost all the time.
So that was the leadership issue?
It's a leadership issue. See,
Individuals matter in
the
the-
staff is very, very weak part of the society. His entire survival depends on the goodwill of the bosses. He knows what boss wants. When P.K. Chaudhary wants all fire, no disturbance in the area, he will do it because it makes his boss happy. The boss, next boss comes and he is not happy, he doesn't bother, why should he bother? He will do only his boss is what his boss is happy.
Yes, sir,
But
there
again-
is another question, you know. In Panna, there is a controversy going on about Game Betwa link project, right?
That is very important.
So, recently, you also know about it. You went to that meeting, but it was not attended by. They are planning some landscaping of Panna post project, when the project itself is subsidized.
But I think it shouldn't happen. When the project is subsidized and the Supreme Court, I don't think they should be taking that kind of exercise. It's a killer for the landscape. The Panna is connected to Radhapani Bhopal, and we have connectivity. Now, as I said, three things. One of the things is connectivity, but it's very, very important. And we have to restore the connectivity. And here what we're doing, we're blocking stuff. And it's beyond my comprehension. You have once not given permission to Gunda mines of diamond, which is only few acres. We're talking about 45 acres or 45 hectares or something of land, saying that it will block the tiger movement, where you have 13, 14 kilometer wide forest. But you allowing a dam of 100 square kilometer, saying that we can make a bridge over it for tigers to go up. Come on.
So the question is about now that I think the tiger conservation people, forest outside also, now there is a new concept which is not very new, but now the focus has shifted to landscape management instead of local habitat management. So that is where the continuity comes in, and we have to, like Kana and Satpura, or as you say, the Ratapani upright. So are you suggesting that the landscape management concept should also be taken up and given more thrust by all the conservationists and the government?
No, I think because it's very important, they have taken this issue, and the problem is for this issue is that they have called us that we will be going there. So we went there and we told them that we are very willing to participate in this landscape management. It is necessary. It's very important that we do landscape management. But we cannot, when we ask who is funding this, it's the same agency who is sponsoring the dam, is sponsoring that project. National Water Development is sponsoring that. So then we said, you will use our information, go with write a report to them, and they will use this report to get the clearances. And it has happened in the past. They will ask the participation, we go, we raise objection, they will not put up the objection, they will say we consulted all the stakeholders, including prominent scientists, and my name will be there, and they say these are the...
So as you know, Raghu, I was on the Wildlife Board of Madhya Pradesh, and this Panna Tiger Reserves, this Ken Betwa link and building of dam, all the issues came up. We and Ranjit Singh ji and Belinda, we all tried to opposed that. In the next formation, Melinda was dropped, and Ranjit Singh and I were there, and the then Chief Minister said that, yeah, I want to take water to the parched lands of Bundelkhand, and you are only talking of tiger conservation, and I am thinking of people who are not getting water. So how do you see this?
Gentlemen, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but since we are in short of time, I would like to request audience to raise their questions along with this one.
Thank you.
So, yeah, no, it is, I'm kind of lost again, what is it?
So I was saying that this Ken Betwa project, the wildlife board,
So for the public goodwill, so it's a political decision.
People were saying tiger.
So I am saying from the WII, all the scientists and wildlife scientists, that why we are looking into the public at large. We are there to ecology and wildlife, and this area was set aside especially to counter the development activity. Now, if the politician want, let them take a political decision that we don't, it is important to create a dam, so denotify the park. Denotify it,
Do it in a
build it
proper
there, and then there is no legal question. So do that way. Why go roundabout? If it's a political need, take a political decision.
Yeah, what I mean to say,
Why give all this?
no, Raghu, because you come from that area, you have spent so many years. I am asking you that while saving tigers, while protecting the habitat, while protecting their beautiful jungles, is there no alternate technology whereby we can take water to various districts of that area? Chhatarpur, Tikamgarh, Panna and beyond.
In Madhya Pradesh, there are only 2 districts which are not water stressed. And Panna is one of them. If you're going to do this, it will become a water stress.
And
So
there are studies supporting that.
There are studies. The government of India, they have own studies. And there are enough work has been done on 2,000 dams which we have constructed, that what benefits we have got. If you look at cost benefit.
So now would you like to take questions from the audience? Yeah.
देखा है कि उनके व्यवहार में बहुत परिवर्तन हो गया है। वो अंतिम मुगलों की तरह हैं कि जो पूरी तरह से रहमो करम पर जी रहे हैं। टाइगर्स में भी ये रिपोर्ट लगातार आ रही है कि कम से कम बांधवगढ़ और कान्हा का मुझे पता है कि वहाँ के जो टाइगर्स हैं वो भी अपने पूर्ववर्तियों की तुलना में छोटे और भीरू होते जा रहे हैं। इस पर आपका क्या कहना है?
You mean to say they're getting used to the presence of vehicles and.
एक और क्वेश्चन, क्या छोटे और भीरू होते जा रहे हैं क्या?
कमजोर होते जा रहे हैं
वो
टाइगर भी।
पहले से छोटे
साइज में?
यस,
हाँ।
पहले से छोटे और डरपोक होते जा रहे हैं।
No, I think what I can understand what you're trying to say. I think by having this behavior and things, it's not going to affect genetics. It's so much that they become a smaller or thing. It will take several hundreds of generations to reflect if that kind of selection happens. If that kind of a pressure also continues like that. But one thing which I understand what he's trying to say is that there is a change which we will see is that animals are getting used to presence. Now, what I really don't like in the national parks is that, and especially 80% or 90% of now are we Indians which are traveling going to the park, is that we make noises. We behave very differently. So that a tiger cub which is growing up with the noise surrounded by the jeeps, and when he grows up and goes to the village and then people shout and scream and try to scare him, he is not scared because he is doing it and seeing it every day. So it's a something, when we go to the park, everyone, we need to make them aware that it's not a picnic park. We are going and we have to respect that animal. We have to be quite quiet, keep distance, so that it don't fall into the kind of problems you're raising. It can happen.
Yes, second question, please.
Yeah, Chubby Cats program in Africa at all, and even sometimes also in India. And what I see from the broader picture, my hope is limited, but I think doubling space, what is going on in different areas, and having more paramilitary control system would be the only situation to cover up, let's say, the livings of those big cats. In Africa, we lose from 200,000, maybe you know that, from 200,000 lion, we have now 18 to 20,000, and only 5 from the genetic pool, vital populations in all Africa. And so I think I have limited hope for Nepal, for Bhutan, for Russia, and for your country. All the other tiger estates, I would not invest any money on that. And tourism should be under a controlled pattern of a new conceptual framework all over, not only noise. I thank you for your doing, and I hope for India that you are lucky in the next 20
It's actually not
years.
only in India, it's the subcontinent, and you
Yeah.
forgot Bangladesh. And
Okay.
Bangladesh is not only doing well in economically,
Yeah.
but it's also done wonderful work on
Yeah.
tiger
On
conservation.
Sundarbans.
And it's there is lot India can learn
Yeah.
from. So actually, if you look at tiger conservation, wildlife conservation in Asia,
Yeah.
the subcontinent has done
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah.
Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, and Sri Lanka, and parts of Pakistan.
Yeah.
You will not forget that parts of Pakistan have done wonderful work
Yeah.
and up in the mountains. So subcontinent is in leading light as
Yeah.
far as the wildlife
Yeah,
conservation
yeah.
in the world is concerned. We doing it, but there is a slightly different thing, because in India the kind of population we have, it's very difficult to militarize the zones.
Yeah.
It is not possible, then it becomes a safari park. We want all the entire landscapes, and tiger adds a lot more value to the forest if tiger appears. And it is possible. In India, people are quite tolerant. You see, when you drive on the road, you know how tolerant we are when we drive. So we are very tolerant of many things. And we are also tolerant. We have the largest population of elephant lives. We have tigers living in urban areas, leopards living in urban areas. We have not utilized that sentiments in our conservation work, but because we are entirely worked in last 50 years on one exclusive conservation model. If we work and we find India can be a leader in showing how inclusive model can
I
work.
clicked the finger for that. And last question to you: what's about the prey density and those things? Is it-
And prey densities in our protected.
Yeah.
So we are very successful in our protected area model. We have not been able to do it because we have not done any conservation in outside of protected area, so it is not reflected in there. But the prey densities in good tiger density to survive is mainly because we have done very well with our prey densities.
And about lantana plant?
Well, lantana is an exotic species. Is a problem.
Is a problem.
species,
Yeah.
but it's not hampering our density. So prey density.
Okay. Thank you so much. And
Thank you so much, sir. And I believe that marks the conclusion for the session. I'm so sorry, sir, we cannot take any more questions. Okay, one last.
One last question, please.
यार वो माइक तो बुलाओ
सर उधर चला गया.
चलो मैं
I would like to ask you,
I'm loud
who
enough.
are these tigers who are around Bhopal? Are they conservation wale tigers, or they are just become vermin around our forests? The issue is that you are conserving tigers in protected areas. What about those who overflow and come into the non-protected areas and become cattle lifters?
See, all the wild tigers are conservation tigers. It's
What is the other category?
there is no other. No.
Kierwa and Kalia Sot, these are
Huh?
conservation tigers.
They are very important conservation tigers, and that's what we entire focus of. We were talking about connectivity, landscape. These are very important for us to look at. Because we have not worked on our non-protected areas as far as conservation. So conservation is not reached there, and we have not worked, and we have not planted, and we have not taken advantage of our success stories. That's why we see the as a vermin by some people. They are not, and we can turn them into money generating economic incentives.
As Raghu had said this thing before, tigers don't unnecessarily come out of their habitat unless they are driven out because of the hunger and other places. So that is what he was trying to make a point earlier also, that our tiger management system should be very robust. and the areas, protected areas and the tiger reserve should have area. Therefore the buffer zone and other things came up. But now tigers are coming into Bhopal, which was their own area once upon a time. That is what the tiger experts say. But Saxena ji, last question.
Last question.
During your stay in Panna, did you see any conflict of considerable magnitude between the conservation efforts and mining mafia? Because once our chief minister, last chief minister, while declaring the buffer zone of Panna National Park, he was very reluctant. He said, "Kya hota hai ye buffer zone?"
No, which was mining, sandstone mining was huge, but it stopped. So there was a huge conflict. It's still a conflict, and mining is a huge lobby because it generates employment and it generates money. And I am saying, we are saying that it's not only buffalo economy, but the sandstone mining, everything can be compensated by if we do conservation work. But we need a different conservation model which generate with the intention that the benefit goes of conservation goes to the entirely to the community, and the conservation will happen automatically after.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. And I believe that marks the final conclusion for the session. And it was indeed, yes, a conservative topic. And I'm sure we need more of conversations.
Siddharth, just a minute. I forgot to say that this is a very interesting book, and the book is available outside on the stores. And those who are interested in picking up a copy, they should go and do, because that everything goes to tiger conservation. And he will be signing there. I mean, the author will be there. So this is a rare opportunity of seeing Panna tigers and the author as a tiger conservationist.
Yes.
Thank you, Raghu.
Yeah. And for now, to enhance